Glad you've joined us. We are ready to get started with our initial review of our first module content and the assignments and solution that have been posted in Blackboard. So if you would join me, you can follow along. It'd be a good idea to follow along so you can see the same things I'm seeing. Over the weekend, we posted some things in Blackboard for the course. And I hope that you received some kind of notice in your UVI email. I will build an additional email list with your private addresses. If you have a current email address in your contact information in BandWeb or in the My Campus portal, then what I'll do is take a look at that so we can email your personal email and your UVI email when we have notices and assignments that go out, and that way people will have a better idea of what's going on. So one of the things that we're going to do today is to take a quick look at what's expected for your first submissions. And if you look inside module 1, you'll notice we mentioned this before. You need to submit a legible screen image, something that shows that you have a legitimate copy. You've rented or purchased a legitimate copy. I have mine in Kindle, right? VirtualBox Made Easy. It's a $8.99 book on Kindle. And if you haven't turned that in yet, please do that. I will go ahead and extend that deadline so you don't have to worry about, oh, it says it's due by midnight this Monday. Just get that in. For your server software downloads, what you want to do is go into the Microsoft software on the My Campus portal and get the latest copy of Windows Server and then capture and submit your license keys. Did we review that last week or no? Okay, so if we go to the My Campus portal, can everyone see? How's the audio for everyone? Are we good? Can everybody hear okay? Who's attending remotely?
Yeah, the audio is good.
Okay, excellent. So for some of you that have been in some of my other courses, some of the initial work in this class may be a bit of a refresher, but I promise you that as we get further along in the course, you'll see and learn more and more interesting things about virtual systems. And so if you know or not, because you're a part of the university, you are a member of the Office 365 license program, which means that if you go into Office 365 from here, especially using the Edge browser, because that's a Microsoft browser, right? Then you have the opportunity to download Microsoft Office 365 Professional Edition on your laptop and on several other devices. You can have it on your smartphone, you can have it on your laptop, and there are some advantages to working in Outlook on your personal technology as opposed to viewing it from the web all the time, okay? I would advise everyone to take advantage of that. The second thing you'll notice here is Microsoft Azure for Education. Now, because you're a student at UVI, it's going to ask you to sign in. And it's just asking you to verify again your identity. So you're going to pick an account and it should show your student name. If it doesn't show an account and it asks you to enter an email address, be sure to enter your students.uvi.edu address. I'm going to select this and it's going to bring me here so that it's double checking to make sure I'm not some software bandit, right? Yeah, a software pirate. Software buccaneer. We are buccaneers, but not software buccaneers. If I do this right, it should clear. It'll ask me if I want to stay signed in. Now, I want to advise you on this in all of your classes. If you are given an opportunity to stay signed in or to save your password, you should say, don't show this again, and no. That's because you probably have another life outside of UVI. Would that be a true statement or no? Anybody, unmute your microphone. Do you have a life apart from UVI? Or am I making a false assumption here? Yes? Okay, so if you answer save my password, and then you have multiple devices, you have a smartphone, you have a laptop, you have multiple tabs open, and then your password changes for any reason, God help you, because the other tabs have the old password cached in some cases, or your other devices have the old password cached, all right? So what you want to do is make sure that each time that you need, I know it's kind of a pain, but everybody knows that you can reset your password with a handy link at the My Campus portal site. Yes, you just click and then it beams you a code or it asks you a question. You can reset it anytime. Okay. So inside Microsoft Azure, Azure is the cloud-based environment for Microsoft products and services. And what they're doing is working very hard to get people to understand that it's good to have Microsoft operating systems and applications on your personal technology on the ground with you in the physical world. But it's also good to have those resources in the cloud. And what is this class all about? Well, for 1 hour a week, we meet so that you can examine some concepts and then do some things hands-on to learn and to gain a better understanding and then be able to use more efficiently virtual systems, virtual applications, virtual networks, virtual servers, the cloud, the stuff out in the cloud, right? And what I'm going to teach you in the course of this class is how to build that. So we're not just using the stuff, you're going to learn the skills that you need to set the stage to build that. One of the most important resources, we're going to skip over the Azure piece right here until I have a chance to see how far $100 will go. But you'll notice it says, okay, you have $100 in Azure online credits. So you could actually set up a virtual system in the cloud for this class. And whenever you run it, the $100 runs down a bit. So the $100 lasts depending on your usage. If you use your virtual machine to surf naughty things in privacy on the internet over the long weekend, then $100 is going to go pretty quick. Okay, so it's all based on intensity of use and duration or length of use. So how much and how long you use the resources, that's the model that Microsoft does for their cloud services. And they want to give you a taste. So they're acting like drug pushers here. They're giving you a $100 bill, a C note, and saying, we're going to give you $100 in credit to see what working in the cloud is like. And we'll get a chance to noodle with that in our final module, which is about special topics, okay? And it'll be well within the 157 days where it expires. Okay, we'll use this up by the time we finish. Now, what else is in here? There's software you can download. And one of the most important things that you need to do is to scroll down and find where it says Server 2022, Standard and Data Center. Now you'll notice 2019 is there, but you do not want 2019. And for those of you that have been in other classes with me last season, and we did a virtual machine and it was 2019, if you want to ask, because in some of my classes, students are already doing that. Hey, can I use the virtual machine from last year? My question is going to be, is it 2019 Or is it 2022? Because the year this month is 2023, right? And what we've learned is that some hackers are having a much harder time getting into the Kool-Aid on Windows 2022 or Windows 11. Now, the kernel of the operating system for Windows 11 and the kernel of the operating system for Server 2022 are identical. Put another way, you could download the server standard, you could set it up as a virtual machine, you could load Office 365 on it, you could run it in the cloud or run it as a virtual machine on your system, and if your laptop or your PC blew up, it wouldn't matter because you'd still have the virtual machine you could connect to and you could use. As long as you had an adequate backup of that, as long as you had an adequate storage option to work with that. And that's pretty sexy. What am I saying? You can be the ghost instead of the hacker. You can set up resources for an entire server. You can set up a website with a click of a button. And there's a web page right there, ready for you to use, right? You can get in there and edit it, put your own picture on it, and that kind of stuff, right? Then you can hook it up to dynamic DNS and then share a link with everybody. And you're like, hey, look at my website, woohoo, right? And it's your machine. You're not using Amazon Web Services. You're not using Google or Microsoft. It's not in the cloud. It's your web server, your website. And the point is that you can use this thing like it's a bulletproof, Teflon coated, Kevlar coated, nothing sticks to it, nothing wrecks it, right? It's like bulletproof, bomb proof, nothing will, no chemicals will stick to it, right? You can basically hit a replay button. Now, if you don't think that's sexy, let me say that again. You can use this virtual machine, and if something gets in there and scrambles the eggs, then you can like hit the replay button and it goes in reverse. And it's like back, and there you are again, just like new, nothing wrong. When it's ransomware that hits, you get to laugh at the ransomware people. If you use these virtual systems the correct way, they will hit you. They will encrypt your data. They will send you nastygrams and say, you'll never see a picture of your grandmother again, or your children, or your cousins, unless you pay us a ransom in Bitcoin. And you go, nah, I'm not feeling it. And you ignore them. And you hit the button, and the magic rewinds back to before the ransomware encrypted your junk. Now, I don't care what anyone says. That is fine. That is sexy. That is worth learning. That's worth doing. That's worth practicing. That's worth showing and telling everyone. Because you're going to have a superhero status on your systems and nothing will be able to touch you. When everybody else is toast, you're going to smile right through it all. Doesn't matter if stuff crashes. Doesn't matter if the hackers get in. Doesn't matter if the data is wiped out. You just click a button and it all goes back. But to get started, you got to have this software. And this is professional grade software. Now, I want to explain to you that this software is provided to you as an educational participant. So Microsoft said, okay, these are students, these are faculty. We want to be drug pushers. We want to hook you on this. What am I saying? No one needs a bootleg copy of Windows. You have one right here, and it's on steroids. The server edition, the standard server edition works just like Windows 11. You can load stuff in there and on there, software, and you can run it like it's a PC, like it's a laptop or a PC. What I want you to do is to click on it, the standard edition, and over here on the right-hand side, I want you to view the key and then scroll down. Now, I'm gonna basically cancel that because I don't want my key on this recording. I'm gonna clip that out. That's my copy of standard server. And that's my key. That's keyed just to me. So when you see this video, right after I say, oh, yeah, I'm not going to keep that on the screen, you're going to see the next screen. You're going to see the next screen I'm showing you right here. 2022 data center. Now, the cool part is when you download the data center copy or the standard copy, it's about 4 gigabytes. So you need to be on a fast internet connection. If you don't have that at home, you want to be on campus. But the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have plenty of disk space. So you're going to want to do some things to optimize your personal technology. Apart from that, you're going to get the key, you're going to copy the key, you're going to open a notepad, and you're going to say, data center 2022. And then you're going to put the key in. Everybody got that? Yours is going to be different. Everybody's is keyed to them specifically. Now, why are you submitting that? Well, because the data center version, all right, so the data center version, you need data center hardware. I have some platforms in my office that have about 10 times the amount of RAM on your PC or your laptop. And it has CPUs in there that are about a dozen times more powerful than the CPUs you have. And what we're going to do is load the data center version on the virtual platforms, but then you're going to use the standard edition because that's the one that you can put on regular hardware. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? Okay, so we're going to utilize your data center license and put it on some hardware that can run it. And then you can access that with this, with your smartphone. Now this is a Pixel 7 Pro, and if I set this up right, it's actually pretty smooth and it's pretty fast and I can see everything. That's a small screen, but I can basically move the mouse around and then tab. I can do that. I'm going to demonstrate that in our next class. Okay? I'm going to show you how this works in our next class and where these virtual machines are going to be. But you're going to have a virtual machine on your own screen. We want you to know how these are built and then do it yourself. So that's where the standard edition comes in. And after you finish putting in the key, you're going to save this. And you're going to save it with your first initial and last name, right? So you're going to say T Kentop. You can say 1.2 assignment T Kentop, right? And then you submit it in Blackboard. Now, you only download once, either from the data center screen or from the standard screen. The one file installs the data center or the standard, okay? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? So don't download both. Only download one, but do get both keys. Okay? Now, the cool part is if we set up the data center edition on one of our virtual platforms, we can install 100 of those machines, and we have a special code. It's unlimited. We just set up extras. So we can set up 4, 5, 6 extra server virtual machines for you if you give us your data center license to use on the virtual platform, okay? So that's why we want you to do this for one of your assignments. Any questions on this assignment here? Okay. Now, there is a video, and if you watch the video, it'll probably mention Server 2019. It's an older video, but it's still the same thing. You're gonna submit the file, the text file, and you're gonna have like a screenshot of the download. Now, when you download this thing, it's gonna be a certain size, and what we want you to do in your downloads folder is take one of those really big downloads, and we want you to right-click it. So when the server license, the install media downloads, we want you to open up properties, And in that video, it'll tell you what the number is supposed to be. I'm going to update the assignment to include that number here. And I'll say, you know, this shows 2019, but here's the value you should see. We're talking about this right here. If you download the install media and the numbers match, the odds are really good that you got a good download. If it doesn't work, it's probably because the download got corrupted during the transmission process, or you know, it just didn't finish. Everybody understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tweak this. There'll be another line here that says, be sure it's this number of bytes when you open up the properties for the ISO, okay? And if you watch the video, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now, this assignment, if you've done it, if you've been in some of my classes before, some of you might be cringing at this point, but I want to assure you that if you've done it before, then it's old hat. And when you go through this, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember this. You're going to update the operating system. You're going to update the applications that are loaded. You're going to uninstall things you don't know, you don't use. You're going to make sure that you have at least 50 gigabytes of disk space on your laptop. And if you don't have 50 gigabytes of disk space on your laptop, I may ask you to go out and get a small thumb drive, you know, which can still contain quite a bit. And if you have like 100 gigs of bootleg movie videos, you could move those onto your USB and make plenty of room. Just saying, right? Just saying. Or bootleg music or legitimate music and legitimate movies and videos, right? Okay. If you click this link, it'll walk you through the same process using Windows 10. Some of you have Windows 10. If you have Windows 11, it'll look a little different, but the features and functions are still the same. You're just going to find them in a slightly different place. Notice that this was something that you were supposed to have done by noon Wednesday this week. But let's just say that you have through the end of the long holiday weekend, right? Before our next class. These things have to be done before we get to our next class, okay? Now, the last thing is the solution. You're going to set up a basic Linux virtual machine. And you're like, why would I set up Linux? Well, let's suppose that some of you get finished with this one and you tell me how much available disk space you have. And how do you do that? Well, it's going to ask you to open this screen, File Explorer, click on where it says this computer, scroll down, change the view so that it shows details, and it'll show you how much space you have left. I have 197 gigabytes free on my USB thumb drive. I have 658 gigabytes out of 928 gigabytes free space left on my C drive. But let's pretend you don't have it. Let's pretend that you don't have an extra thumb drive and it is what it is and you're cramped. Well, that's the good news. When you get to the solution, what you're going to set up is something that's really efficient. It's got a very small footprint, and as long as you have about 10 gigabytes of drive space, 10 gigs, you can buy a 16 gig, a 32 gig thumb drive at Office Max for like, what, 10 bucks? About that, right? 32 gigs. So you could copy something onto that thumb drive and you'd have 32 gig, you'd be ready to go. When you open this up, what it'll show is that you're going to download a version of an operating system that's free. So this is open source stuff. There are open source applications and there are open source operating systems that don't require you to pay lots of money. So Bill Gates might be one of the richest people in the world because he started and then ran Microsoft for so many years and then he retired, right? But there's a way to work in technology and in the cloud where you don't have to spend anything and it's legitimate and it works just as well. And it's, in some cases, it's much more efficient. So what we want you to do is to get a taste of what it's like to download. And I'm going to show you this here. So if you click the link, what will happen is that it'll start to download, and this is all of 627 megabytes. That's about the maximum amount available on an audio CD, not a DVD, just an audio CD, right? So it'll download, and you see here, I've got 0 seconds left. And what you should see when you finish in the downloads folder, this is just to demonstrate how the install media is supposed to work, right? So in the server 2022 video or 2019 video, you'll see me do this, where I right click it and then go to properties, and then I do this. Your numbers should match. When you download the Debian, so it's like Debian, right? Only it's Debian. You should have 657,457,152 bytes, right? That's about 627 megabytes. And then you're going to install VirtualBox. So after you've done the optimizing your personal technology, you should have at least 10 gigs left. And we just downloaded 600 megabytes. That's not even a gigabyte. What we're going to do is we're going to install a VirtualBox version on our machine. So to do that, if you've never done that before, if you're on a Windows machine, you're going to click the link and click Windows Host. If you're on a Mac with an Intel processor, you're going to click Mac Intel Host. If you're running Linux, you're going to click Linux. Any questions so far? You might say, well, what do I do if I have a Mac? I have a MacBook and I'm using the new M RISC chip, that really fast smoking hot chip. If you have one of those, email me and say, what do I do then? Instead of using VirtualBox, you'll use another product called Parallels, which is designed to run on that chip, okay? Works the same way. The other thing you're going to do after you download it is you're going to download the extension pack. Now, the extension pack takes your specific hardware. So let's see how many different kinds of brands we have in the room. I'm working with, let's pretend I'm working with an IBM over here. What brand of system do you have, Rosalina? What brand is that?
Oh, HP.
It's an HP, okay? How about you?
Asus.
Asus. I love Asus. I mean, not that there's any problem between HP and Asus. Let's hear from the rest of you. What brand of system do you have?
HP.
HP. Okay. Anyone else? What brand of system are you running with?
HP or Dell?
HP or Dell? Okay. Who haven't we heard from yet?
I'm running on Mac.
You're running on a Mac. Okay. Is that a Mac with an Intel processor or an M chip?
Intel processor.
That's an Intel processor. So you're good. You can download this version and it'll run really nicely on a Mac. Actually, VirtualBox runs very well on a Mac. Cordell, what kind of brand for your personal technology do you have to work with?
Hello, can you hear me?
Like a Lenovo or HP or Dell?
I have a Lenovo laptop.
You use Lenovo. Excellent brand. Did you know that a lot of the components that are found in Lenovos are the same pieces and parts that they use in a Mac?
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Same factory in China. Makes much of those. Yeah, it's true. And the high-end HPs too, the more expensive HPs, same kind of thing. Okay.
Okay.
Sari, have we heard from you yet?
No, I run it on Mac.
Okay, you run on a Mac. Are you using an M chip or an Intel chip?
The M1.
The M1. Okay, so when the class ends, be sure to send me an email saying, hey, I need that information on the other virtual client, okay?
Okay.
You'll use a different link to do the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. Marilyn, do you have, I know you might be tied up in the afternoons, but if you can, You can unmute your microphone and tell us what brand of PC or laptop you use.
Oh, I did already, HP.
Oh, HP, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't catch whose mic was hot, so thank you, Marilyn. Okay, so we all have different brands and models, and each of those have different CPUs, and different memory chips, and different display adapters, different screens, different keyboards. And this piece right here, the extension pack, is like the common denominator. It takes the stuff that you have and it translates it into the virtual pieces, the virtual devices. So when you're building a virtual machine, your virtual machine has CPUs, it has memory, it has hard disks, it has display adapters, it has all of that. But in order for it to work right, we all have different brands and models of computers, and that's why you need the extension pack. You're going to go ahead and download that and install it, and when you do, all you're going to do is accept the defaults. You're just going to click next, yes, next, yes, next, yes. One of them is going to look scary. It's going to say, oh, are you sure you want to disrupt your network? And you go, yeah, I want a virtual network on my virtual machine so I can get on the internet and do cool things, right? So you're just going to click through that. The link for this assignment, right, will tell you and show you how to do things. So here it says, if you have a Mac, download this version instead, right? So if you have a Mac computer, when you get the Debian, you're not going to get the same Debian that the others. It's still version 12.1. It's just the version for Macs, okay? Everybody with me? Now, if you have problems running your machine after you load it, it may be that the BIOS doesn't enable your virtual features. When you start your machine up, your laptop or your PC, there's a logo on the screen. Everybody's seen that before, right? You've seen the Lenovo logo, you've seen the Asus logo, the Dell logo, the HP logo, all of that. And Mac, right? You'll see the Apple. And essentially inside there's BIOS. It's a basic input-output system. It's the first program that runs that gets all of the pieces turned up and turned hot before the operating system loads. That BIOS has an extra feature, and you're usually looking for something that says virtual, or it says VXD or VTD. If you run into that snag, you should just let me know. But one way to look is to just click on your start menu and then type in system info. Why don't we all do that now? System information. And then maximize the screen. And as you look at the system information right at the bottom, if you select the top and then just use your arrow key down, it'll tell you the version of BIOS that you're running. And then you can go to the website and see if it's outdated, which is another thing you should probably do when you're getting your machine ready to work this stuff. The other thing it'll tell you is, like, this right here. Whether or not the virtual stuff is allowed, right? Is the hypervisor been detected and the virtualization stuff? There's something else in here that shows that. But system information would be your first clue whether or not your virtualization is doing something. Usually when your logo is showing, the BIOS, the HP or the symbol is on the screen, you press a special key and then you go into what's called a startup menu. And then you can look around for that. So that's something you need to do only if you're having problems. What I wanted to show you with the time remaining is how fast you can set up a virtual machine if you've done what you're supposed to do with your setup, if you've optimized your machine. So what I'm going to do now is go into VirtualBox, and I'm going to run this. And you should be on version 10. Let's see, what version are we on here? Your version of VirtualBox should be 7.0.10. My bad, 7.0.10. It's really tiny right here. If you have the latest version of VirtualBox, you might have an old version. If you have an old version, uninstall it and put the new in. And what I'm going to do is create a new machine. And I'm going to name it Debian. And I'm going to look for the ISO image right here by clicking this down arrow. And I'll go to my downloads folder. And I'll look right at Debian and double click Debian. Now, the moment I click that, it knows that it's going to be setting up Unix and Linux, right? I want to skip the unattended installation. So I'm going to select that box. If you miss that, you're going to end up with a different experience than what I'm about to show you. But this will take all of 2 or 3 minutes to run through. I'm going to say next. I'll give this, now if you have 8 gigs of RAM, you can give it 2 gigs of RAM on your system. If you don't, just give it 1 gig. If you have plenty of CPUs, like I have 16, you can give it 2. And if you have more RAM, you can give it like 4 gigs of RAM. You can put 4096. It means it'll run faster and it'll get done sooner. You can check this box, but I wouldn't recommend it. Just hit next. And when you create a virtual hard disk, this is where your hard disk space matters. If you have a very small amount of hard disk space, and let's say you only have 12 gigs, 16 gigs left, I'm going to change this to say 16 gigs, right? Because I really don't need that much. But I also want to make sure that this thing runs fast. So I'm going to pre-allocate that size. And I'm going to say next, and then finish. And it's going to create the disk. It's creating a virtual hard disk, a 16 gigabyte virtual hard disk. Now this is going to run for a few minutes, but then after it's finished, what's going to happen is that you get a chance to go into settings and see if there's any yellow exclamation points. All you have to do is fish around in there and see what it says with the yellow exclamation point. It might say something about display. So you go to the display option and you change it to VMS instead of VBox, right? So it's very easy to figure out if there's something that isn't going to work right. And then after that's done, all you do is run up to the start button, hit the pull down, and start it in detached mode, or just hit the green arrow. Just go ahead and hit the green arrow. Follow the prompts. It'll say, do you want to do this? Is it okay to do that? Click through it. I'll have a separate video for this that you can follow for the solution. I'll put the link out before the weekend. But that's the basic process and how you get started. Does anyone have any questions before we finish our class today? Okay. Well, I'll stop sharing and stop recording. And I hope you enjoy your extended Labor Day weekend. Please be sure to go into Blackboard and open up the references folder and the resources folder. You can watch the videos that we've recorded and start reading the study guide on the material. It describes what you have to read in your text. There's only a few pages you got to read in the textbook. It explains how virtual systems are organized and how the software works to provide that. It's pretty interesting stuff. So if you could get that going, we'll review that in our next class, and we'll use our next class as a Q&A session if you're running into any problems with your virtual machine. And then when we get into the second module, after the holiday, when we get into the second module, we'll use that server license, okay? So you'll build a Microsoft machine next time. That's all we have. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye for now.